the one we've all been waiting for. In this special feature, we're diving deep into the emotional and heartwarming premiere of Heartland Season 19, Episode 1. The long-awaited, breathtaking moment when Borden finally returns. That's right. After seasons of grief, unanswered questions and heartbreak, this episode gives us the emotional payoff we've been craving. Borden is not just a memory anymore, he's back. And not just back in spirit or through flashbacks, but back in person. In this video, we're going to walk you through every moment of this grand return, step by step. From how the show builds up to this emotional moment, to Amy's heart-wrenching reaction, Lindy's innocent acceptance, and how Jack, Lou, Georgie and Tim all respond to Ty's shocking reappearance. Plus, we'll explore the most touching scene of all, an emotional, honest conversation between Ty and Amy that will leave you in tears. So make sure you like, comment and subscribe, because this is just the beginning of what's shaping up to be the most powerful season of Heartland yet. Now, let's take this journey together, step by emotional step. The episode opens quietly, gently, with the Heartland Ranch bathed in early morning light. Horses graze peacefully, birds chirp softly in the distance, and everything feels calm, yet somehow heavy, as though the air itself knows that something big is about to happen. Amy is in the barn, brushing a horse. Her movements are smooth and practiced. She seems more mature, grounded and calm than we've seen in previous seasons, a reflection of the years she spent rebuilding her life without Ty. On a nearby shelf sits a photo, one we all recognise, Ty and Lindy side by side, frozen in a moment no one ever expected to fade. Amy pauses, her eyes lingering on it, a soft smile touching her lips. But there's also a flicker of something else. A longing, a pain that time has dulled but never healed. That's when the first sign appears, a letter in the mailbox, addressed to her, with no return address, just a faded Montana postmark. Amy opens it hesitantly. Inside there's a photo, an old one. Ty, alive, standing outside a rustic cabin, looking worn but very much alive. On the back of the photo is a short note. "I'm sorry, I'm coming home." From that moment, the tone of the episode shifts. Amy doesn't speak of it right away, but her entire demeanour changes. She's distracted, thoughtful. She looks to the horizon a little more often, stays out at the barn a little later. Jack notices it first. "You all right, kiddo?" he asks gently. Amy just nods and gives a small smile, but we, as the viewers, know something has been stirred inside her. As the day goes on, Lou picks up on it too. She sees Amy lost in thought while making lunch, staring at the letter she's tucked away in a drawer. Lindy, ever perceptive despite her age, watches her mother curiously and finally asks the question that brings tears to Amy's eyes. "Mommy, are you waiting for Daddy?" Amy kneels down and hugs her tightly. "I don't know, sweetie," she whispers. "Maybe." Meanwhile, the episode gives us brief glimpses of a stranger on the edge of the ranch, near the river where Ty and Amy once rode together. The figure is never shown in full, just glimpses, boots walking along gravel, a familiar silhouette watching from a distance. The show teases us masterfully, building up tension while filling the air with emotion. Finally, as the sun begins to set, Amy is alone in the barn. The horses are calm, the sky painted with hues of gold and lavender. She hears footsteps behind her, slow, steady. She thinks it's Jack or Tim. But when she turns around, her entire world shifts. Standing in the barn doorway, silhouetted by the fading light, is Borden. For a moment, time stands still. Amy doesn't breathe. Her hands tremble slightly as she drops the grooming brush. Her eyes widen in disbelief. Ty doesn't say a word. He just looks at her, eyes full of emotion, worn by years away, but unmistakably the man she loved. "Ty," she finally whispers. He nods slowly. "It's me." Her breath catches. Tears fill her eyes. She steps forward, not running, but cautiously, as though afraid he might vanish. She reaches up, touches his face gently. When her fingers make contact, she gasps softly. "You're real!" And then, overcome, she begins to cry. Not the sobs of sorrow, but the overwhelmed, disbelieving tears of someone who has finally found something they thought they'd lost forever. The scene that follows is intimate and raw. Amy doesn't immediately embrace him. Instead, she steps back, struggling to process everything. "Where have you been?" she asks, her voice cracking. Ty's eyes are heavy with regret. "It's a long story. When I'm ready to tell." Amy nods, still in shock. "You let us think you were dead." Ty doesn't try to defend himself. He simply says, "I had to. It was the only way to keep you and Lindy safe." And just like that, the floodgates open. Amy cries harder, torn between rage, love, and relief. She walks away, stands in the open barn doors, trying to breathe. Behind her, Ty stands silently, knowing he's broken something precious, but also hoping he can fix it. The next morning, we witness one of the most powerful scenes of the entire episode, Lindy meeting her father. Ty sits on the porch, nervous, hands clenched in his lap. Amy watches from the kitchen window, heart pounding. Lindy steps outside, walks over curiously, and stands in front of Ty. She tilts her head, studying him. "Are you my daddy?" she asks, wide-eyed. Ty can hardly speak. "Yes," he finally says, voice thick. "Yes, I am." Without hesitation, Lindy walks into his arms and hugs him tightly. Ty wraps his arms around her, tears falling freely. Amy watches through the window, hand over her mouth, her heart breaking and healing all at once. Jack Bartlett, the Rock of Heartland, had seen more loss, joy, and change than most men do in a lifetime. But nothing could have prepared him for seeing Borden walk through the front gates again. He stood quietly by the barn, hat in hand, his weathered face a mask of stillness. But his eyes told a different story. Beneath his rugged exterior, Jack's heart was warring with every emotion he'd worked so hard to keep buried. The memory of burying Ty, of watching Amy suffer, of stepping up for Lindy. All of it came rushing back like a flood. Yet, as Ty approached, there was no anger, no bitterness, just a quiet, deep breath. Jack looked at Ty, searching his eyes the way only a father figure could, and finally nodded. "You're home," he said, his voice low, cracked but steady. It wasn't a dramatic reunion with grand gestures. It was something much deeper. A man who had once doubted Ty's worth, then came to love him as a son, now welcoming him back, not with words, but with his presence. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low behind the foothills, Jack and Ty sat on the porch together in silence. "I buried you in my heart, Ty," Jack finally said. "And that space never healed, until now." Ty's hand gripped Jack's arm, not as a boy seeking approval, but as a man returning to the roots that shaped him. Jack's wisdom didn't come from lectures. It came from the quiet power of forgiveness, resilience, and understanding the deeper truths of life. In that moment, he became not just the family patriarch again, but the spiritual compass guiding them all forward. Lou Fleming had always been the practical one, the planner, the realist, the protector of family stability. So when she first saw Ty standing on the porch, alive and very real, it felt like the ground had been ripped from under her. Her reaction wasn't immediate joy. It was shock, disbelief, and the rapid firing of questions in her mind. How? Why now? What does this mean for Amy, for Lindy, for all of them? Her arms were crossed tightly as she approached, not out of anger, but as if shielding herself from the emotional storm brewing inside. Her eyes scanned Ty, trying to convince herself this wasn't a dream or some cruel trick. When their eyes finally met, she whispered, "Is it really you?" Ty's nod was enough to send Lou stepping back, breathless. But as the minutes passed and she watched Lindy hug her father, watched Amy's eyes fill with tears of joy and confusion, Lou began to soften. Her own memories of Ty, of family dinners, support during difficult moments, and shared dreams for the future resurfaced. Later, in private, Lou approached Ty quietly. "I don't know how to feel right now," she admitted, her voice shaking. "Part of me is angry, part of me is thrilled, and all of me is scared." Ty nodded, not pushing her for acceptance but understanding her heart. Lou's strength had always been in her ability to care deeply, even if she hid it behind her determination, and in Ty's, she saw a future she didn't dare hope for. A second chance, not just for Amy, but for the whole family. Slowly, Lou reached out and hugged Ty tight, emotional and long overdue. "Welcome back," she whispered through tears, letting the past begin to settle. Georgie had grown into a fierce, independent young woman, shaped by both triumphs and pain. Ty's death, or what they all thought was his death, had left a permanent scar on her heart. He was the first person who truly believed in her, who saw something special in a troubled young girl and helped shape her into the strong rider, athlete, and woman she had become. So when she saw him again, standing at the ranch as if time had folded in on itself, her legs froze beneath her. Her first instinct was disbelief. Years of learning how to let go had taught her how to bury pain, but not how to resurrect joy. "You can't be real," she said through a shaky breath. But then he smiled, that same familiar smile, and the years melted away. Georgie ran to him, and for a long moment they held each other. She didn't cry immediately, not the way others did, because for her this was complicated. This was the return of a mentor, a father figure, a piece of her identity. Later, in a quiet moment between them, she told Ty how much his influence had shaped her. "I wouldn't be who I am without you," she said, her voice trembling. Ty, visibly emotional, placed a hand on her shoulder. "You were always strong. I just reminded you to believe it." Georgie's growth became clearer than ever, not just because she had achieved great things, but because she had the emotional maturity to welcome Ty back with gratitude, grace, and the awareness that love, even when interrupted, never truly ends. Tim Fleming had never been good with emotions. He wore his gruffness like armor, always ready with a sarcastic comment or a quick defense. But Ty's return cracked that armor in ways no one had seen before. At first, Tim kept his distance, leaning against the barn, arms crossed, face unreadable. But his eyes betrayed him. Watching Amy break down into Ty's arms, watching Lindy giggle through tears as she hugged her father. It broke something open in him. Memories came flooding back. Ty asking for his blessing to marry Amy, Ty helping him during rough times, Ty's steady hand during chaotic family moments. And now here he was, not a ghost, not a dream, but real. When Ty finally approached him, Tim's jaw tightened. "You've got a hell of a lot of explaining to do," he muttered. Ty nodded. "I know." But Tim's tough front lasted only seconds longer before he pulled Ty into a crushing hug, patting his back so hard it almost hurt. "Damn it, kid," he said, voice cracking. "Don't ever do that again." It was a rare moment of vulnerability from a man who often hid behind jokes and deflection. But Tim's heart had always beat fiercely for his family, and seeing Ty again awakened that soft emotional core he kept hidden. That evening, over a quiet beer by the stables, Tim finally said what needed to be said. "You're my son too, you know, and I never stopped missing you." Later that night, when the sun had set and the ranch had quieted, Amy and Ty stood alone in the loft, the same place where they'd shared so many beginnings. It was silent except for the distant sound of horses and the breeze brushing the old wooden beams. Amy turned to Ty, her face a mixture of joy, pain, and overwhelming love. "You were gone," she whispered, tears welling up. "I grieved you. I built a life without you, and now you're here, and I don't know how to breathe." Ty stepped closer, his eyes full of the weight he carried. "I didn't want to leave. I didn't plan it. but I had to disappear to protect you and Lindy. There were things you didn't know, and it killed me every single day to stay away." Amy's tears fell freely now. "You missed her first steps, her first words, my breakdowns, my healing." Ty nodded. "And I'll never forgive myself for that." There was a long, painful pause. Then Amy stepped into his arms, resting her forehead against his. "But you're here now." Ty gently held her, both of them shaking. "If there's a way forward, Amy, if there's even a sliver of hope that we can be what we once were, or something new, I'll spend the rest of my life proving I never stopped loving you." Amy looked up, her hand resting over his heart. "You were my once-in-a-lifetime love, Ty. Maybe you still are." In that sacred silence, they kissed, soft, emotional, full of longing and the years that had passed. It wasn't a fairy tale moment. It was raw, painful healing. It was real. And for the first time in years, both Amy and Ty believed in a future again. And that's it for today's deep dive into Fleming-Borden's grand return in Heartland, Season 19, Episode 1. If this emotional journey moved you as much as it did us, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more heartfelt Heartland content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Until next time, stay safe and keep the Heartland spirit alive.